G'day and welcome to the Game Day Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dill, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We are back once again partnering with Game Day Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. It's Wednesday, you know what that means. Teamless Tuesdays have dropped, and it's time to take a deep dive into our round 24. Yeah, that is right, round 24 GDS squads. Look, we've only got 4 rounds to go, plenty to play for each and every week with those leaderboards and those prize cards far from decided. Look, I'm in the running and I've got a lot of work to do, I think, as well. We're also down to the grand final of the Classic Cup. So it's a nervy couple of days for a couple of our boys over on the Discord. Stu, another big week for the Fantasy Bros last week, both on weekly comps and season long. How'd you end up in round 23?
Yeah, g'day, Dill. G'day, viewers. G'day, listeners. Thanks for joining us once again. Yeah, mate, on the podium again this week in Champion, I finished third, which was great. I could add a couple of extra funds or packs to the Premier League football that is about to go ahead this weekend. So I think a lot of the people over in the Discord are eagerly awaiting tonight's bingo at about 8 o'clock. So we'll try to get through this one nice and quickly so we can jump over there and rip open some packs. But if you're not yet involved, make sure you go check out football. That's English football on GDS as well. Yeah, mate, so third in Champion, 5th in Challenger, and 9th in Classic was pretty nice as well. But I saw you atop the Challenger leaderboard heading into the last couple of games on Sunday. Did you manage to hold on?
Yeah, that was quite nice seeing that. So it was after my massive Sammy Walker Diamond pod in my Challenger squad. I was pretty keen to potentially have a win there. However, couldn't hold on, dropped to 9th in Challenger that Sunday. I think quite a few coaches had a few players across those 2 Sunday games that were some absolute rippers there. I did finish 4th in Classic though, so that means I'm now 16th overall. I'm well entrenched in that prize card battle in the Classic competition, and there's about 4 or 5 people, and it could go either way over the next few weeks, so I'm really excited about that. Look, a massive shout out as well to a couple of regulars on the show, both the Wet Bandits and the GOAT. John Boney, we see them each and every week here on the show. They had a massive round 23 in Contender. They finished 2nd and 3rd respectively. So congrats there to them. Also a huge shout out to Tenders, who people might know as Jack Ganner or Ganners on the comments as well. Another regular on the show. He is currently 2nd place overall in Contender, only 2 points behind 1st as well. So there's a massive battle there because 1st place does get a prize card in the prize card draft come the end of the season. So good luck to Ganners. I know that he's been following closely, and some of our tips have definitely helped him along the way.
Yeah, mate, great to see some familiar names atop those leaderboards, and particularly some of these blokes that I'm not sure about Ganners, but I know the Wet Bandits and definitely Jay Boney, the GOAT, only really started playing GDS Rugby League this season. And to see them, winning some nice packs each week and getting really high up on those leaderboards to win some even better prizes at the end of the season is pretty cool to see. So that just goes to show that even if you don't start GDS in the very first week, you can still win plenty of prizes each week and even by the end of the season. So Dill, just want to remind our viewers how they can get involved. And we still got a pack code for $21 worth of packs should people want to sign up for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Pack codes on the screen there for everyone on YouTube. If you are re-listening on Spotify, that is FBRL25. As Stu said, 3 times 9 player common packs, so $21 worth of packs just for using our code to let the boys over at GDS know that we sent you. And as we said, each and every week, there's still plenty of prizes and cash and packs. So we've still got another 4 rounds, plus there is the finals series as well. That is a separate competition that I'm looking forward to getting involved in as well. But look, first off, before we get into our teams today, we do have to talk about that Classic Cup final coming up. Obviously, you and I have been eliminated, but we do have Guard Dogs up against Jacks. Now, I know that you spoke to Guard Dogs earlier today, and he had a few words heading into this final matchup.
I did, mate. Yeah. And what a matchup it's set to be. We sort of spoke about the matchups when there were about 16 players left, and we sort of started putting our predictions forward. And I know you were pretty big on Guardy, and I was mentioning Jax's name amongst the leading contenders as well. So it's down to those 2 guys, which is really exciting. I dug back through the numbers from week 1, and let's just say these 2 had a face-off at any time during the campaign before the final. It would have actually been 4-4 as of now. But going back 3 weeks, wow. Jax was in front 4-1. He would have beaten Guardy 4 times and only lost the once. Guardy's got the wood on him over the last 3 weeks. And I think because of that, Guardy has thrown a little bit of chat his way. Look, Guardy can't join us tonight. I was really hoping he could come on and say a few words, but he just wanted Jax to know to make sure that he's bringing his A game this week. Gardy says that his boys have been training really well all week. And he's got a few sneaky fades that he thinks Jax is going to run out. That's not going to go so well this week. And he's got a couple of really sneaky high upside plays ready to go. And we know that that's Gardy through and through. He loves his Jermaine Jolliffs and Jordan Rickies and Stafford Towers when they score hat tricks. So I'm sure Gardy's got a couple of these guys up his sleeve this weekend.
Yeah, look, good luck to Gardy. He loves a good pod. I tried to get a word from Jax, but look, I don't know if anyone knows, but he's really quiet. He doesn't love having a chat on, particularly over on Discord. He doesn't like to say a lot. I know. Oh, wait, hang on. What is this? Oh, here he is here, Jaxie. Good on you, mate. You finally made it. You heard Gardy's words. What do you have to say in reply?
Well, I played Jolliffe last week too, so if we're talking about pods here, I guess we're going to go for a pod off. I've got a couple on the bench that I reckon even you boys will be shocked at too. So,
are you comfortable in sharing any of them, or?
Yes, I will. I've got both Simkin and Harry Grant on the bench.
Okay. Going with three hooker play.
Wow, that's massive. I love it, mate. Is there any particular safe plays that you're going to run out this weekend up against Gardy, or are you just looking for the pod the whole time?
Yeah, the safe play will be All-Star Nathan Cleary, Jim Haas, and Jim May. I think that's the safe play for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully, can lock down maybe 260 odd points there. I know Gardogs is an OG, so he's probably got these cards too. So we probably might end up running the same cards there. So who knows?
And mate, has there been any chat during the week, or will there be any during the weekend? I know that Dill and Fire Breathers in the Classic Cup final were sort of chatting back and forth, and Dill played the Harry Hayes centre pod early on in the round, and Fire Breathers was sort of playing catch up after that. So I think that big pod early on and then their chat back and forth sort of meant that Dill had a pretty comfortable win after JT was sort of throwing out a whole heap of Hail Marys to catch up. Will there be any of that going on this weekend, or are you just going to keep the squads to yourselves?
Well, yeah, no, I will be. I don't think that's a shock to anybody at all. No, every single chance I get. So if I can, somehow get some intel on some of his players, I definitely will be making sure that I give them some digs whenever they are terrible.
Yeah,
they'll be tagged every single time, every penalty, every error.
I love it.
While you're here, mate, would you like to announce any bets for anyone willing to take them on the Discord forum? We know that you're a big fan of that. Now the floor is yours. Would you like to issue any relating to the weekend, relating to the Bunnies, or even this Classic Cup matchup? I thought I'd put you on the spot with that.
Bunnies winning.
I think they're a big chance this weekend. Yeah.
Latrell Mitchell's back. That's all we need. As long as he's back, I think we'll go close to winning every game. Adam Dewey for a double. He may or may not be in my team.
Ooh, there you go. I love that one. All right, mate. Any final words to Gardy before we let you go and get your team sorted tonight?
Probably just for him that if he's going to watch the show, probably just watch it again because he needs all the information that he can get.
Good stuff. Thank you for giving up some time to join us and have a chat, mate. It's always good fun. Good luck for the weekend. I hope you have a big game, and I hope it comes down to the last couple of players on Sunday. That'd be unreal.
Thank you very much, boys. Have a good one.
Good on you, mate. Yep. Good luck.
Cheers, Jax. Take it easy. Good luck. All right, there it is. It's a massive round. It is Guard Dogs up against Jax, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. We'll also be keeping a close eye on a lot of our players this week, and let's kick it off with the hookers. As always, we've got probably one of our favourites that find his way into our squads each and every week, and obviously that is the one, the only Blake Brayley. Stu, are you looking anywhere else this week, or are you just going to stick with that tried and true method of Brayley?
Look, I'm going to sound like a bit of a copycat here, but I did have a name that I was actually really happy to keep secret to myself this week, and I haven't ever really done that on this show. I've been really open with saying the names that I'm going to play, or even putting the top 6 on the screen. But there was a name that Jax mentioned only a couple of minutes ago. Any idea who that was that I might be considering playing this week?
Well, he did say Harry Grant, and that's someone that we talk about quite a lot. But I did hear another name thrown out there. I did hear a Jake Simpkin, and I thought that I was dreaming. but obviously not. Talk me through.
Let me talk to you about Jake Simpkin. Back to 80 minutes on the weekend. Hadn't played more than 60 minutes in the hooker position since about round 12. They don't have a recognised hooker on the bench. It's just Tommy Talau there at the moment. And it's very similar side to what it was last weekend. Now, Manly are must-win territory, so it looks like this is how they're going to be running for the rest of the season. And if they're entrusting Jake Simpkin to play 80 minutes, he can certainly rack up a whole heap of fantasy points. He scored a nice solid 60 or 62, I think, in the weekend just gone, but it's the 80 minutes next to his name that's awesome. He's always been capable. He works really hard. He makes plenty of tackles. In that 80 minutes, he made 54 tackles, but he still managed to rack up 64 run meters as well. So he's not just a tackle bot, but he's also pretty crafty and close to the line. You know, it wouldn't surprise if he wants to duck over himself or try to throw a short ball to one of his forwards. So I love that play from Jax. It sounds totally like I'm copying him, but he's Jake Simpkin is in 2 of my 4 squads at the moment. So I've gone 100% Blake Brayley, and 2 teams have Simpkin on the bench. There you go.
Yeah, nice. Look, I've also gone Blake Brayley, but I've got another Brayley for you, and that's Jaden, his older brother. Look, I think it's a bit of a battle of the brothers this week, to be honest. Jaden's up against the Cowboys, who have allowed 43.5 to all hookers in the past 5 matches. So that's both starting and then bench hookers as well. So that's a pretty good average there. It includes a 56.7 from Blake Brayley earlier in the season. And then Jaden himself is coming off a 70-point effort up against the Panthers. So I think that's potentially a pod there for Jaden Brayley to have a decent game up against the Cowboys. Obviously, the Knights don't have a huge amount to play for besides some pride. And they did, they showed a little bit of ticker for a while against the Panthers before they obviously ran away with it. So there's an opportunity there up against the Cowboys for a bit of pride and to maybe stay off the bottom of the table. And I think Jaden Brayley potentially might be a bit of a pod. But yeah, I'll be sticking with Brayley across my sides and might sprinkle in a Simpkin or a Brayley and a Grant here and there across those ones that I'm not too concerned about, and just going for some upsides. So my challenger and my starter at the moment are the couple that I'm just throwing a few things at and hoping that they score quite well.
Yeah, 68 tackles. You can't bat your eyelids at that. That's a monster effort from Jaden Brayley. Might not see that same game time with Jake Arthur on the bench this round with the 4 forwards the previous round. But yeah, look, if you're someone that's looking to find some upside or find some pods, then there's certainly some merit in going that direction.
Indeed. All right, let's jump across to the middles and let's rejoice because we have 2 of our favourites in Haas and May back on side. So we'll throw those straight back into our squads. I don't think anyone is going to debate that. And as Jack said, he's probably looking to play some top rarity there with Haas and May particularly, which is a great salary pot option, which we talk about each and every week. We know that majority of coaches are going to play those 2 blokes. We know that they're probably going to score between 60 and 80 plus if they get an opportunity to have a few extra attacking stats. So it's a nice and easy option to play as much salary as you can on them, depending on the competition that you're playing. If you're playing in contender, that's obviously a gold maximum there. But if you're in classic or challenger or champion, then we're looking at potentially those diamonds, etc., that we'd want to play. So with that, we've obviously got the 2 that we're definitely keen on. Who's your third that you're looking at this week to play in the middle?
Yeah, it's going to be Naf White for me. Look, despite the sin bin and the subsequent 10 minutes off the park last week, he still scored a really nice, solid 50 points. That was even with the score blowing out after a pretty entertaining sort of first 20 minutes. And that meant his tackle numbers were down just 16 all night, despite averaging 30 for the season. So I think it should be a really nice battle between the 2 packs in this match, the Roosters versus the Dogs. So I think there's going to be plenty of work, and the game's going to be played predominantly through the middle, I think. So look, 50 minutes, including a sin bin, with only the 16 tackles. That's some pretty nice numbers to give me a bit more faith in running him. And it might only be a bronze in a sort of a classic or a challenger in a contender competition. So I wouldn't throw much salary at him, but he just seems like one of the safer middle forwards to play alongside Haas and May with no yo. So yeah, I think he can also play some bigger minutes. Robinson's already trusted him with that in the past.
And we've already seen him play, I think, as high as 73 minutes in round 18. Obviously, that was a bit origin disjointed there with the side. But, there's plenty of opportunity there. His average base and power is also 50 plus GDS points per game. So I think anytime you are potentially looking for someone in the middle to shoulder that load and take on 50+ points. I think you get pretty happy with that. Look, obviously with all the excitement, we haven't had a chance to get to some comments, so let's just go through quickly. We obviously saw Sif Kanga here nice and early at about 6:30 commenting, so it's great to see Sif Kanga hanging around. He said that he's running with Brayley. I'm guessing that is Blake Brayley that Sif Kanga.
Yeah, which one?
But we'll press on. Look, also Ryan P has joined us again. He struggled without May and Haas last week, so he's glad that they're back. I think we all are. And then Jay Boney, the GOAT, is here, and he's asked the question, no Paddy. Yeah, for me, no Patrick Carrigan again. And I think the big contributor to that is the difference between when he's playing with and without Haas. He often has less opportunity when Haas is on the park with him. Look, we did see 80 minutes from Carrigan last week, and Haas did play obviously there last week, but I just don't see it. He's averaging 65 with Haas on the park, whereas without he's up around 68, 70. So I'm wary about the minutes, even though he did get 80 last week. That was obviously injury affected as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more later on.
And hadn't seen 80 minutes since round 7 as well. I've had a couple of 70-minute matches in sort of the before Origin, but since Origin, only really in the 50s. Started to get some low 60s, and then that 80 just in the weekend gone. If he's getting 80 every week, then he's definitely in consideration. But like the blokes like Naf White, 50 with the sin bin, with plenty more minutes on the field and more tackle numbers, I just see a little bit more maybe safety in that. If the Bronx are getting out to a nice lead or something in this match, which is definitely capable, there's every chance that blokes like Carrigan and Haas will get a rest. And if you're already getting reduced minutes from Haas and add Carrigan on top of that, that could impact the amount of points that you're going to score through those middles. But look, not a don't play, but maybe just a couple of other guys we're looking at instead.
Yeah, and one of the other guys I did look at, and I looked at last week and played him last week, was Lindsay Smith. He's up against the Storm this week. He had an absolutely barnstorming first half last week, notching up just over half a century of points before the end of the first half. And then I don't know whether Ivan didn't play him as GDS side this week, or maybe tried to fade him and was hoping for a bit of a win, because he hooked him after 47 minutes. So he played the full first half and then just had 7 minutes in the second half, and he never returned. So I was absolutely spewing, because he was on track for at least tonning up, which would have been unreal. So I'm still quite keen on him. I'm just not sure what his minutes are going to look like. The bench is exactly the same. Isaiah Papali'i's back at lock again, with Yo still being out. It is a tougher matchup, obviously, against the Storm. I don't think it will be a blowout like it was last week. But I just don't know whether Smith gets more minutes on the park, because it's going to be a tighter affair, whether it's going to be a bit more open. And I'm just not sure about it yet. So I'm just going to leave that one at the moment. And if there's any signs of potentially that bench changing at all and maybe some increased minutes, then maybe I'll have a look later on in the week. But for me, that means that I'm going to go to Tino Fasuamalawi. He's back from injury, and he finds his way back into that lock role at the Titans. And we've had some success with Tino in the past. The difficult part for me is that his missed tackle count, which I'll talk about, which is impacting his performance a little bit. But over the last 5 weeks, the Sharks have allowed an average of 40 GDS points to starting locks, which is actually the most in the competition across that position during that time. And we just have to look at last week, Jack de Belin scoring 58 in that lock role. So I'm going to aim to exploit that vulnerability there. Obviously, Tino wasn't having an outstanding game before the injury in round 20. He does come back from that injury now, and he was averaging a touch under 50, which with actually a massive range of outcomes. He had a low of 20 points, but then a high of 75. So it was difficult to know what you were going to get from Tino. The thing for me, though, starting at lock, he's averaging 60 minutes in the park, and he's averaging 52 base and power. So I think if he can lower those missed tackle counts, and then if he can reduce that, hopefully that needle moves in the right direction for me. And he has a big game up against the Sharks. And the Titans have been looking pretty good without him over the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be a nice little pod play as well. I think a lot will be hesitant to play him coming back from injury. If he has a big game, there'll be a lot flocking to him next week. So a great way to get a bit of a jump on the pack and get him in this week before he has a big one and goes off. We know he's a threat really close to the line. And he, just like Jaden Campbell, I think he's one of the most passionate players in that Titans uniform. Those are the two guys that just want to rip in every single minute they're on the field. He'll keep trying until that final whistle, and he'll break tackles and offload. But, those missed tackles are costly, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Now, you've got a bit of a pod play potentially, and it's someone that we've seen do quite well in the past, but we haven't seen his name on the screen for a long time, and that is Jermaine Hopgood.
Probably not since round one would his name have been on the screen. So I just wanted to spend 15 seconds talking about him. Just trusted with 65 minutes again through the middle in the last few weeks before returning to 80 minutes, which is exactly where we want to see Jermaine Hopgood. It looks like they're running with Talon Silva on the bench there and playing him, specifically through the middle there with Riley Smith. So 80 minutes for Hopgood. He topped the tackle count and returned with a really nice 60-point score. It might be too early to jump on that, but he's always had a PPM of about 0.9 or 1. So it's just a matter of getting the minutes for him. He was, only getting 50 or so minutes to start throughout that whole season, and that's why we just couldn't play him for those 45 to 50-point scores. If he's getting those 80 minutes again, that base power jumps right up to about 60 or 65 points, which is exactly what we want to see. Now, I've got an all-star card of Jermaine Hopgood, and I'm sure a lot of players who played last year will as well, and they've probably been itching to play him for a number of matches this season, particularly in the Challenger competition. So he's on the board. He's on the screen tonight because he's going to get a run in my Challenger competition. I just hope that he can get 80 minutes on the park. That was more than 15 seconds, but let's hope Jermaine Hopgood doesn't make me look silly after this week and playing 50 minutes.
I'm actually super surprised that Talon De Silva has stayed on the field after he got that massive spray from Mitch Moses on the weekend. That was one to see. Look, Hopgood, if you looked at his earlier efforts in the season, you'll see a 17-point effort off the bench against the Panthers in round 19. And that probably would be enough to turn most people off. But he's averaging 48 over the last month with 60 minutes on the field. Obviously, that 80-minute performance is where we want him. So he's starting to move sort of back to that Hopgood of old. And maybe I'll just, similar to you're going to play him in one of your competition, one of your squads. I think I might just hold off and just have one more week look at him before I go and put him into my squad. But in saying that, I'll probably eat my words next week and be spewing that I didn't play him, but he'd come away with 70 points from just base and power. But that's the risk I'm going to take this week, unfortunately, because I've got the likes of Haas, May, White, and Tino, which means that I'm also going to have 3 edges in my side as well. So let's jump into the edges and have a look at where we're going with our edge forwards. And a few names on here that we've seen quite a few times. Obviously, Halasima is a new one to pop up, and as is Ricky. I know you talked about Ricky last week, and you're potentially looking to go back to him again.
Yeah, I've actually played in the last 2 weeks for, I think, back-to-back 60-point scores, without really doing anything too special, no sort of tries or try assists. It's mostly just been through work. Now, there is a bit of hesitation given, the raft of changes happening in the Broncos team, with the unfortunate hamstring injuries of both Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds there. So obviously the halves are going to look a little bit different. We expect Benny Hunt to line up there on the right-hand side, where he has been an excellent fantasy player in the past. He's obviously a few years older since that time, but there's no reason why Jordan Rookie sort of can't have a similar role running off Ben Hunt and making plenty of tackles like he has already. So yeah, I've been playing him because of his workload has been increasing and that little upside playing off the right shoulder of Adam Reynolds. I don't think that changes too much, although I'd love to have seen it once or twice already before fully committing. But yeah, I think the Bronx are a big chance of a win here. They need to win. The Finns were embarrassed last week, so I think he'll get through plenty of work, and he's always going to be that sneaky chance of a try. And Benny Hunt had the most try assists in the competition only 2 or 3 seasons ago playing as a right half. So, yeah, fairly confident. I wouldn't put a high value rarity on him in those lower tiered comps, but I think he'll see a platinum or a diamond in the higher comps for me.
Yeah, nice. Look, Sif Kanga has let us know that he is playing Preston and KPP. And I think maybe Sif's had a little peek at my team this week because I'm also following that. I think Preston's just a lock and load this week with the limited options that we have. Hutto Young, obviously, on the bye. You can see on the bottom of your screen there that the Raiders are on the bye. So we lose the best edge in the game this week. And so Preston, I think, is just an easy plug and play. So for me, my second edge is actually that man KPP, Kai Pearce-Paul. He's up against the Cowboys this week, and really KPP's last month has seen a pretty good average, sort of churning along that 55 GDS points, which is actually slightly above his season average as well. He's been around about 53 to 50 throughout the season, so it's actually been a super consistent season from him. look, he's had a low of 33 and then a high of 75. And it's really just base and power is the only thing that he's been scoring or accumulating points with. He's only scored 2 tries and had 4 try assists the whole season, which is pretty crazy to think from, some of the other edges that we've got in terms of Hutto and Presto getting over the line quite a few times. Over the past 4 games, though, he has averaged, the KPP has averaged 44 tackles, 95 running meters, and 2 offloads per game. So it's probably not a huge amount of upside that I'm chasing. So I'm happy to play as bronze and then hope for that decent sort of 50 in base power. And then anything on top of that will just be that nice touch there from KPP. Obviously, the Knights, like I said, are in a bit of all sorts at the moment. They're playing a couple of blokes that are not usually playing in the side, and a debutant as well that we'll talk about a little bit later maybe. So hopefully they have a decent game up against the Cowboys up there.
Do you imagine if he was on a top side like, the Storm or the Panthers or the Raiders, and like that, those try numbers would just go through the roof, wouldn't it? And he'd be, someone that you'd consider playing almost every week, gets through plenty of work. He's, had every, so many good judges have rated his game, but it just hasn't seemed to come to fruition there playing for the Knights. So, what could have been. But, certainly going about his work nice as well. Mate, I am playing Eli Katoa this round, and I hadn't liked him as an option over the last couple of rounds since the omission of Jerome Hughes, but that hasn't really seemed to cause too much of an issue to his scoring. He did get bailed out with a mid-50 score with a try, I think, 2 weeks ago, but he showed that his numbers are still fairly similar without Hughes there on his shoulder. And even so, it might mean his tackle numbers have increased a little bit, or even some run meters, maybe less likely for those attacking stats, but he's still someone that's getting through plenty of work. He's of all of the edges remaining, he's got the 3rd highest average available, even though he's got about the 10th average of all edges so far this season. That just goes to show how many are unavailable this round. But like, he's just a safe guy. I think. I don't think he'll score a try against the Panthers. I expect it to be a bit of a grind, and those are the matches where we sort of see plenty of points from forwards, and that's when the forwards are sort of more likely to crash over on the edges. There, he's a big body game. It's sort of a finals game come early, so look, Bellamy's got their backs against the wall. No Pappy, no Hughes. These are the sorts of games where they don't normally go to script. So I'm expecting some big things from Melbourne. I don't think he'll feature in every team, but he's too good of a player to ignore. So he's going to find a way into a couple of my squads.
And based on that, I'm assuming that you are running the 3 edges, the 4 middles, and then the one hooker this week. Yeah, similar to me. I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to my Preston and KPP combo another guy that we've sort of talked about the last few weeks, and a number of people have played him. That's Beau Fermor. I'm really keen on him this week. He's up against that Sharks side who have lost Britton Nakora on that right edge. And I think that's going to be a big hole for them, and it's going to be quite difficult for them to fill that role for the Sharks. Fermor also on a 5-week rolling average of 43, which is 9 points less than his season average. So I don't know if a lot of coaches will be keen on playing him. The Titans have been playing some really good footy, though. They've scored 88 NRL points in the last 4 weeks, and he's sort of been in and around that area, but he hasn't quite crossed the line like we know that he can, and a couple of his appearances earlier in the season. Because of that Britton Nakora injury, Billy Burns finds his way into the Sharks side, and I'm going to assume that he's going to fill that right edge role up against Fermor on the left. If I'm wrong, then I might look at changing my squad. But at this stage, if that does happen, look, Billy Burns playing just at starting side for the 8th time this season. In his 7 previous appearances, he's missed an average of 3.5 tackles per game. Burns also should line up with Hines on his outside, Hiroti on his inside, and between those two, they've missed a combined 5 missed tackles per game. So I just feel like this really sets up Beau Fermor for a really good opportunity to break some tackles and maybe find the line and get his score up to a 60 plus with that sort of right side defense up against him, looking a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, love that play. I just don't know what's happening with the Titans bench at the moment, or with Keanu Kinney, if he's going to get a start, if they reshuffle things around. I know Feeder, I think, is in doubt. There's every chance there might be an edge, a centre spot open up, and we know Fermor, unfortunately, always fills in there. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, there's always a little bit of question marks around for him, or if he moves to the centre, he's obviously loses a lot of that attacking potential and also the base. But look, he's higher than Eli Katoa on averages this season. So certainly someone that's very capable, and he'll find his way into a couple of my squads too.
And I guess if that does happen, there's a pivot into your man Jordan Ricky, or maybe one of the Eels edges as well. They've got a nice matchup up against the Rabbitohs there, so it might be a Charlie Geimer or someone like that finds his way into my side if there's that downside of Fermor moving to centre before the start of the game.
Or a Tallis Duncan.
Or maybe that Tallis Duncan there he's also playing quite well. Halasima potentially as well. Not for me. The Warriors are just on an absolute losing streak at the moment. And look, Michael Cozzi thinks he's going to go with Preston and Halasima. He's got the question mark there, though. And I'd be wary of Halasima. He's been playing quite well. He's obviously really got really big raps on him. But, yeah, I'm just concerned about the Warriors in general. Their team is not scoring points, both in NRL or GDS points. So I'm just, a little bit concerned. I do talk about one Warrior later on, but not for me for Halasima this week. I think there's a few other decent options with some better matchups. Alrighty, let's jump into the halves. And obviously everyone's first player on the list is going to be Nathan Cleary, I would say. The big game we've already talked about up against the Storm. It's a bit of a finals feel to it. And I think that's where Cleary obviously steps up and has his big games, is usually in those sort of tight tussles that come down to the wire. And he seems to have his hands on everything, and he just accumulates GDS points by doing very little, or what looks like very little, but he's able to just make things happen. And look, I'm going to play a high rarity on him again in the classic competition, just so I can get that salary pod, knowing that pretty much every other coach is going to run Cleary. With that in mind, we've got 5 other blokes there that are vying for probably 2 positions. Who are you looking at and why?
Yeah, it's going to be Jaden Campbell and Nicho Hynes. Pretty boring, I know. I feel like they'll be fairly popular. I know you've got a pretty good pod that you want to double up again, maybe and roll out in 1 or 2 of your teams this week. But look, Hynes and Campbell, they will come up against each other. It's a really nice matchup for Nicho Hynes on paper, with the Titans, leaking points more than just about more than any other team in the competition at the moment. We know Nicho will get his fingerprints on plenty of those attacking opportunities, and he'll kick goals as well. Jaden Campbell is just someone I just can't ignore given his ceiling. He was the reason why I won that classic competition a couple of weeks ago, playing as Diamond, and he scored that big 100+ score. He's just so capable of going big, even when we don't really expect it. And Titans have their backs against the wall. They're, fighting out for that spoon. They lost to the Bunnies last weekend. But like I said earlier with Tino, it's those two that continue to just put their hand up and continue to play for that club until the final whistle goes. And look, he was limping halfway through with a bit of a sore knee. He was embarrassed a little bit there by Latrell Mitchell when he took too long to put the ball down, and that cost him some points. But even when the Titans are losing, he's still getting plenty of points through his kick meters, through his runs. He breaks tackles fairly frequently, but his tackle efficiency is pretty high as well. If the Titans get on a run, it's on a roll, it's generally because of him. And he's been pretty cheeky with his intercepts as well. So he can score points all across the park. It's just a Sharks thing to do to lose to the Titans this week. So if there's any likelihood of that happening, I want to be on both sides of the footy there. I hope the weather's good. Haven't checked it yet, but I'm liking them too at the moment. But it does mean I'm fading Sammy Walker again. He came up trumps for you last weekend. Are you playing the same 3, or are you looking to fit a Walker in
Before I talk about my players, look, I want to apologise on behalf of the Fantasy Bros to all the Cronulla Sharks fans out there. I think Stewie got the Sharks and the Warriors confused. It's more like a Warriors team to lose to the Titans. Look, at the moment, I've got both JC and Hynes in my side as well, which does mean that super pod in Sam Walker misses out. The concern I have is playing 2 elite halves against each other. I want to go back and dive a little bit deeper into stats when 2 elite halves have played against each other, whether they both score well or not. I haven't had an opportunity to do that, but I might report back onto Discord if I find some interesting data there around that matchup. It just doesn't seem like it's possible. And and that's completely anecdotally, completely vibe-based, which is not a great way to play fantasy, I'm sure. But yeah, for me, it's just a little bit nervy when I have JC and Hines in the same side playing against each other. Obviously, JC's, like you said, hard to ignore. He's got the 5-round rolling average of 70 GDS points, increasing to 88 over the past 3 matches. The Sharks have allowed an average of 43 to right side halves over the past 5 rounds, so it's not like they're allowing a huge amount. And then on the other side, Hines has been pretty consistent in the last month, ranging from 52 to 56 in all of those games since he scored that ton. He then faces the Titans, who have allowed an average of only 38 GDS points in the past 5 rounds to right side halves. So someone's got to come out on top. I don't think both players will have low scores, but hopefully both players can have big scores. If I decide to go away from one of them, it will probably be Hines. And if that's the case, then Sam Walker finds his way straight into my side. Over the past 5 weeks, the Dogs have allowed 60 GDS points to right side halves. That includes a Dearden 62, a DCE 64, and an Adam Dewey 91. He was lining up in the halves in that game. So that's a really interesting take on the Dogs, considering that they've still been winning most matches. They did lose that. They did lose that Tigers matchup, but they've been winning before that. But interesting that they allow that many points to the halves. I did take that punt on Sammy Walker last week, and as we said, I was top of the leaderboard, and I was pretty happy with myself seeing that diamond pay off. So I'm happy to play around with him in a couple of my squads. But yeah, like I said, if I get nervous playing both of Hines and JC, I think Hines might find his way out and Walker might find his way in probably later Friday afternoon, Friday evening, unless someone can talk me out of or talk me into something different. I think that's the way I'm going to go.
No, I like those numbers, mate, of right halves there against the Doggies. I would have thought those numbers were down given how good they've been defensively. But anyone wanting to run out Sammy Walker, those numbers are certainly in support of that. We've got Sif Kanga obviously playing Nathan Cleary the chin, but he's also going Isaiah Katoa after he was solid in their massive loss to the Roosters. I think he still scored about a 40 despite losing by 60 points. That's pretty awesome. But Tyron Wishart is a bit of a strange one. Did have a big score last week. Totally different opponent this week against the Penrith Panthers. Storm without Hughes, Pappenhausen. Rise of the Wishart. Sif Kanga reckons that comes off. That's. I reckon that's such a typical Guardy thing to do. I certainly wouldn't recommend it. But look, we got Sif Kanga in the chat running out Wishart. It would not surprise me if Guardy tells us after tomorrow night that he's got Tyron Wishart scoring his team. Anyway,
I can't wait to see it. Oh, that'll be unreal. If you win the Classic Cup with Wishart in your side, you deserve it. You really do deserve it. The cojones that it would take to do that. But yep, not for me at all. Alrighty, let's jump across to the centres. And for me, this is just an absolute head scratcher. The centre options are pretty thin this week. We've got Herbie out, we've got Ito out, we've got Holmes out, and Timoko all out. The previous 3 were obviously injured. Timoko on the bye. It means we really have to dig deep here and look at some names that we probably wouldn't be looking at otherwise. There are obviously names on the screen that we have talked about over the last few weeks, but probably not my first thought coming into the centre role. At the moment, I'm leaning on the combination of Meaney and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Meaney finds his way back at fullback. Pappy out of the side again. Obviously, I feel like that's just going to continue happening every probably second or third week that we see Pappenhausen out of that side and then come back for a week or two. And it means Meaney just finds his way back into that fullback role. And we know that he's had some really good games at fullback over the last few weeks. The other thing that we know is that the Panthers throughout the season have been pretty good at allowing points to fullbacks. Over the last 5 weeks, that stayed pretty consistent of around 52 on average to fullbacks. During his month before moving back to the centre, Meaney was averaging 64 GDS points at fullback. So during that time, he had 23 tackle breaks, he had 15 goals and 2 tries, and 3 out of 4 of those games, he had over 200 run meters. So I'm pretty happy with the limited options that we have to play that out-of-position player in, on paper, what looks like a positive matchup. If we take away the other aspects of it in terms of the position on the leaderboard, in terms of the top four and how that's going to be structured in terms of the grand final type feeling. I think just from a purely stats and metrics point of view, I think Meany has a really good matchup this week.
Yeah, the only question mark for me is none of those games that you mentioned were without Jerome Hughes. All of those games were with him. So, look, we've got no sort of data to back up how much of an impact that would have on his game. But I think not having someone like Jerome Hughes leading around the team, that might be detrimental for someone like Meany, who could run the footy a lot and chime in when he wanted to with Jerome Hughes running the show. Just something that was that I considered as a reason why I didn't want to play that player out of position, even though it's advantageous for GDS. So I don't mind that. Yeah, Penrith are definitely giving up some points, which just continues to surprise. Those fullbacks for some reason just keep scoring against them, and I keep backing against them. But the out of position player I do like in the centres is a player that may fly a little bit under the radar, particularly since his team had the bye last week, and his average is slightly down because he's played in the centres for most of the season. It's Adam Doueihi, who's got a 63-point average in the 3 games he's played with the number 7 on his back, and that's considerably higher to when he was playing in the centres. His 63 points, his 63-point average comes with a low score of 42. So, even 42 as a floor is a pretty safe sort of score for someone that's going to be kicking the ball plenty, goal kicking if the Tigers do score any points, and he'll be doing a lot more playmaking. We saw him score a big 90-plus point game against the Dogs, the high-flying Dogs, and he was absolutely elite. And he's not showing no signs of those 2 or 3 ACL reconstructions, running away from some speedy men in that game as well. So I really like him with the 7 on his back playing as a centre. Jack's mentioned his name earlier as well, so he's on board there too. I'm just hoping he stays a little bit under the radar, and then his average is just going to keep climbing, and then I think he'll be played in most people's teams over the next few weeks.
And the thing I like about that is that the Tigers the Manly Sea Eagles love to give up points to both right and left halves. Over the past four rounds, they're averaging 60 points to both sides of the field in the halves. So I think, Adam Doueihi lining up in the halves is definitely a play there. The stats point to him having a big game, and hopefully the Tigers off the bye come out and really put Manly to the torch, because Manly have not looked good lately. They've been struggling for points. And that is actually why I'm going to fade Ruben Garrick this week. I know that you're pretty keen on him until we had a chat before we went live, and I shared some stats. Garrick up against the Tigers this week. The Tigers have allowed an average of 25 points to right centres in the last month of footy. Considering what has happened and who the Tigers have played and how those games have played out, that is crazy to think that they have limited that position that much. The other thing that concerns me is over the last month of footy, Manly are averaging less than 10 NRL points per game. They had a couple of games there where they only scored 4 points. Garrick's upside, obviously at the centre, is his attacking ability and that goal kicking. But if Manly struggle with their attack, they're not. I don't see an upside with Garrick. Obviously, that could really be flipped on its head depending on which Tigers are coming out and playing. I just feel like the Tigers have had a rest. They've had some big games. They had that big win against the Dogs in the mud bath, and I think they'll be raring to go. So, for me, I'm actually fading Garrick. Unless you've got something otherwise that can convince me about Garrick. What are you looking at in terms of why you might?
Yeah, well, those stats certainly don't paint a pretty picture for those wanting to play Garrick. But for me, it's the fact that we haven't really seen Manly with this full-strength backline with everyone in their ideal position since very early on in the season. We had the Turbo injury for a number of weeks. He returned with a game or two at fullback, and then in the centres, Lehigh Hopewade was out injured. All that sort of stuff is going on for Manly, and they just haven't had their full strongest 1 through 7 yet until this week. So, Garrick's back in that right centre position where he averages 15 more playing on the wing this season. And with the Manly backline, back to full strength, and they probably need to really start making a run for the finals now in that tussle for the last 7th or 8th spot there on the ladder. It's sort of now or never for them. So they've got the team that they need. Things have to click, and it's going to click through this backline. Their forward pack isn't as strong as it can be with, no Hamole Olakawatu. They're going to rely on their backs to score points. They haven't done that over the last few weeks, like you've mentioned, but this is the week that it's going to happen. They got a beautiful matchup here against the Tigers. No disrespect to them, but they can, stay in a game for maybe 30 minutes. If Manly get a couple on them at either side of halftime, it can really blow out. And we've seen Garrick score 4 tries in a game already this season. A lot of us had our pants down around our ankles, not having him in our teams that week. And I don't want to make the same mistake now with Manly. Hopefully, back to full strength, Garrick in his ideal position, and a big match here against the Tigers.
Yeah, I was just about to say, who can remember round 3 when we all faded Garrick and he scored 117 or 118 GDS points? Yeah, that's scary. I'm going to be probably watching that game through my hands over my face. Hopefully, it goes my way, but we will see for sure. I do love the Adam Dewey shout. I do, yeah. Now that you've talked about Garrick and how good they can be, particularly down that right side, Turbo at the back sweeping around, they do look dangerous. It might mean that I might change my my way with RTS as my second centre. I'm not sure yet because, look, I said it already, but the Warriors are in all sorts. They're coming off, 3 poor losses and then that really close one to the Knights, the previous game before that over the last month. And I guess, if anything, RTS has probably been that little bit of glimmer, or that slight glimmer of hope, averaging 47 over on the left wing. Last week against the Dogs, the stat took a massive hit. But look, the whole Warriors team were horrible in that game. I don't think anyone got over 50-odd points against the Dogs, and they just never looked like they were in it. However, if we go back the month before that, in those 4 games before that Dogs game, his RTS's metrics were all up. His running meters were close to 300 per game. He made 18 tackle breaks in those 4 games, and he had some decent attacking stats there as well, whether it was a try or a try assist, a couple of offloads, a line break here and there. So I think that the work that he does taking the ball up off that first or second or third hit up, I really love that work there. He's got plenty of footwork, so he can break a tackle quite easily without doing a whole lot. And then we know when they're on song, which hasn't been very often lately, but when they are, that ball zings to RTS and he finds the line more times than not. So I'm happy to take a punt on him. And again, we talk about it each and every week. The centre and wing spots are pretty volatile. And if we come away with 40 points with our players, we're pretty happy with that. Anything sort of less than 40 and we're scratching our heads, anything above 50 and we're cheering. So if RTS can sort of get around his average again for me, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, don't mind that. Got a few loving Garrick in the chat there with Steve Kanga going the Garrick and Dewey double. Harrison B with Garrick and Meaney. Mel's asked about Cooler there for Manly. Look, Cooler's stats are actually a lot worse with Tom Trbojevic in the team, and it probably makes sense that all the play goes through him. He actually averages 8 less points with Tommy Turbo in that side. And he only scored over 50 once this season with Tom Trbojevic alongside him. His numbers are a lot better without Tommy in the team. So certainly a massive pod who can go big on his day. But no, not for me this week. Happy to move on to the wingers, Dill.
Let's do it. All right, wing spot. Once again, probably another one that's really, it probably comes down to those 3 options that we talk about each and every week in Kiraz, To'o and Lomax. But each of them sort of have quite a tough matchup. And there are some other options elsewhere as well in terms of Braden Burns, who we've talked about a few times. Nwaka Nituaze, I think, has got quite a tough matchup this week. And then Lehigh Hopewade, who we were loving him when he was playing at fullback. He's now moved over to the left wing. Is there any look at playing him on the left wing in that potentially big matchup against the Tigers, or are you going to look elsewhere?
No, I'm not going to play him this week, just with the other couple of options that we do have. But look, he can definitely score well playing there as a winger. And if the Manly backline is clicking, the left-hand side of the field has been their favourable position. Certainly in previous seasons, maybe not so much this year, but he's so dynamic outside Cooler. When Tommy sweeps to the left, they're almost unstoppable, and he can finish some tries really, really well. But no, not for me. I like the matchup of Kiraz. I've even got Zachy Lomax ahead of Brian To'o this week. Look, for the pod hunters, Lehigh Hopewade, back to the wing, certainly not too bad compared to, it sounds bad moving from fullback to the wing, but with outside a hopefully fully fit Turbo in a Manly team that needs to click in a gear and score some points, it might not be such a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, definitely a pod option. I'm not taking that either. I'm slightly different to you. I am going the way of Zaki Lomax, Karaz and Brian To'o. Zaki Lomax for me, really interesting. We have a look at his last 5 weeks, and they've been a pretty tough read. We've got 51, 60, 60, then a 25, and then a 19.8 last week. And for me, that's the definition of juxtaposition. We have a look at his inability over the last few weeks to be able to put points on the board. And the scary part, I guess, look, the not so scary part, I suppose, is that the Eels last week played the Storm, and that's obviously, or a couple of weeks ago, obviously a tough matchup. Last week they go up against the Cowboys, and it seems like it should be an easier matchup for Lomax, but obviously didn't score there. The concerning part for me is that his missed tackles, errors, and penalties are the things that are really dropping that average. He's given up 31 points in demerits in the last 2 weeks. That is way too many demerits for someone of Zach's caliber. And the other thing that he's obviously struggling with, he's not kicking as many goals as he has earlier in the season. So, yeah, I'm hoping he can tidy up that part of his game. And look, the Rabbits are a vulnerable side. Right wingers allowed 48 in the last 5 weeks. So there's potential there. But yeah, for me, I'm just going to probably go that safety in Karaz and To'o, although Karaz, again, at fullback, who knows what's going to happen? Does he stay at fullback? Does he move back to the right wing? Does he move into the centres? Who knows what they're going to do in terms of the way the Dogs run out and play the game. But look, Karaz at fullback over the last 2 weeks, he's only averaged 43 GDS points. His running meters have been down, which is an interesting stat. I would have thought, if anything, his running meters would have increased. However, his tackle breaking and his offload ability, which is one of the reasons why we love him so much, they haven't disappeared at all. He's broken 10 tackles and he's offloaded 5 times in the last 2 weeks. So sign me up for those stats, please.
Yeah, I think Mel's absolutely nailed it here. I miss Fletcher Sharp. Sad face. She says, life was so much simpler when we could play Fletcher Sharp in our wing spot and then only have to make a decision on one of these guys. Look, for me, Kiraz likely goes to that right wing, given Connor Tracy of our reports was fairly close last week. So therefore should come into that number 1 jersey for this week. Obviously, wait and see team list an hour out. But I think moving back to the right wing outside Critter is actually a good thing for Karaz. It also means, like you said, his run meters have been down. He's getting a lot more run meters from the playing as a winger rather than just taking the first carry and then waiting till the end of the set maybe to run on fifth or not at all. Sometimes he's been taking 2 carries a set and being able to offload as well when he's got more teammates behind the ball. As a fullback taking a run on the first hit up, there hasn't been enough teammates behind the ball for him to safely throw that offload. So that's certainly something that has changed his potential scoring. I'm not worried about playing him. Hopefully he is on the right wing. I don't really like Bizzer on the right wing against the Storm, although they're down on troops. Their weak edge is the other side of the field. So if anything, look, Milky Jenkins could be in for a big night, but it would just be a Bizzer thing to get up 14 tackle breaks in a try or 2. The 1 week I don't want to play him. But yeah, it's Zach Lomax for me. I think, maybe a bit more upside than Bizzer in this game. He's probably more likely to score a try and kick plenty of goals as well in that game with the Bunnies that could see plenty of points. The Eels' strong side is on the right-hand side. The Bunnies are pretty poor defensively on both sides of the field, although they're a little bit stronger on the left now. But with Mitchy Moses there, and he knows that he's kicking to his main weapon in Zach Lomax as often as possible. Yeah, I can see Lomax bouncing back to some of those bigger scores you mentioned from a few weeks back.
Yeah, definitely. So how about this for a stat? Looking at Brian To'o, since round 20, he has averaged 45 GDS points. Listen to the teams that he has played: the Rabbitohs, the Tigers, the Titans, and the Knights. If Brian To'o can't score more than 50 GDS points against any of those sides, I am a little bit concerned. However, we go earlier in this year, all the way back to, I think, round 3, when he played against the Storm, and he scored 74 points against them. So, look, that did include 2 tries, but maybe To'o's best games are up against the top 8 sides, and maybe those really tight tussles where he does feel like he's got to get more involved and get those tackle breaks up and really put some of the workload on his shoulders. So, yeah, for me, Just an interesting stat, and it might change my mind come tomorrow evening. But yeah, at this stage, I'm on To'o for that one of those big games up against a big opposition. And for those of you thinking about playing Lindsay Smith, the 24-hour mail has come through, and at this stage, they're still 1-17. They've just cut the last three off the extended bench in Cole, Laurie, and Talau. So there's no change yet to that. The 4 players on the bench, so still unsure what Lindsay Smith's role is going to be. So keep an eye on that as well, and we'll let you know if anything changes there. All right, I think we're done with wingers. Let's jump into the fullbacks and let's wrap this up so we can get into some massive bingo with the English football. Once again, fullbacks, another tough position. I reckon we have sort of 6-7 options this week that we're going with, or that we could go with, in a position where we probably are only able to play 3. I don't think there's sort of anyone outside the fullbacks that we're going to look at for our bench spots. So who's your first fullback that you think will absolutely nail this week?
Yeah, mate, I think 6 or 7 genuine options this week. And I think I'm going to run out 3 totally different fullbacks to the 3 that I run out in my main team, which is the Challenger competition. I think my champion team will see 3 completely different fullbacks just because I don't really know which direction to go. But for the sake of this show, the purpose of this show, my first fullback is someone I'm pretty nervous about, but someone who's got super high upside, and that's Reece Walsh. He's likely kicking goals now with Adam Reynolds out of the side, and he gets a really nice matchup here against the Finns, who just conceded 60. And who was the fullback for the Roosters that had a big hand in that win? It was James Tedesco, and he scored. You know, he was playing cricket. A couple of our mates were saying it looked like he had a cricket score next to his name rather than a fantasy score. But yeah, look, unfortunately, you know, without Mam and Reynolds in that side, there is some question marks around the Broncos attack. But maybe that means, you know, Benny Hunt looks to find ways to get Reece Walsh a little bit more involved in the attack. And maybe this is the sort of game where Reece Walsh steps up without, you know, Reynolds and Mam, you know, controlling both sides of the field, and he's got to take a bit more initiative. With that probably comes, you know, more errors, more demerit points. But this is a game. If I'm going to play Reece Walsh, this one has plenty of upside potential now that he's likely to have that kicking tee as well. Is he someone that you like this week?
He's probably my 4th at the moment, just because of the way that he plays his game and the errors that he has in him, and his ability to try and push one too many passes over and over again. The other thing for me is that the upside to it is that last season he had 6 games without Reynolds, and he was averaging about 50 fantasy points. So there's definitely upside there when Reynolds isn't in the side. And I don't think it matters too much in terms for Reece Walsh, but it's Reynolds that's going to be the big difference. And as you said, Benny Hunt is as good as he's ever been, and hopefully he gets Walsh more involved. But for me, my number 1 fullback this week is Tom Trbojevic. He finds his way back at the fullback position. And over the last month of footy, the Tigers have allowed 63 GDS points to fullback. So I'm pretty happy to exploit that vulnerability. We've seen Tuapiki score 74, Brimson score 70, and then Edwards score 70 as well. So I feel like Turbo's sort of in that realm of fullbacks in terms of his upside in his run meters and his tackle breaks, and then also that attacking opportunity and his try assists and even getting over himself. He returned, like I said, last week against the Raiders, and it didn't result in a big GDS score, but it showed a lot of promise. If anything, just from a eye test, I think he passed that eye test. I think he looked probably as close to fully fit as we've seen him over the last probably season or even 2 seasons or 4 seasons potentially. So for me, I think it showed a bit of promise. He ran 185 metres, which is the most he's had since round 15. He had 4 tackle breaks, and then he crossed over for a try as well. So the Tigers, vulnerable to fullbacks. Turbo, I think he's going to have a big game. I think that game could be a massive score as well across the park. So more points for Turbo, please.
Yeah, I'm certainly with you on Turbo. We've spoken plenty about Manly and, them sort of having their back line back to full strength. So I think he'll certainly have a big game this weekend. Someone who had a big, massive game last weekend that Benny Austin is not playing in his team this round is James Tedesco. He's gone Scotty Drinkwater instead and said that, he thinks the fullback spot could just be the deciding factor in some of those leaderboards this weekend. And I think he's spot on. He's going for Drinky. Drinky will be in 1 or 2 of my squads, but I can't leave out a man that went absolutely nuclear last round. Yeah, the matchup is going to be a little bit tougher, actually a lot tougher. But look, we know what sort of ceiling Teddy has. We said last week we expected it to be a lot closer there against the Finns. It clearly wasn't, particularly in that second half. But the tough and the grinding type games is when Teddy sort of stands up and breaks plenty of tackles and scores some big fantasy points. So yeah, look, plenty of upside in a bloke like Drinkwater or Latrell Mitchell over James Tedesco. I'm just too scared of leaving him out after last week. Did play him last week across all 4 squads though. I know many didn't, but yeah, look, if he goes nuclear, I'd only be, I'd be really disappointed myself for moving off him after we know what he can do.
And Mel put in the chat there, who backed Teddy last week and has no regrets. That was definitely me. And I know someone that had regrets that didn't play him was Prison Mike, which is weird because Prison Mike actually supports the Roosters. So I'm not sure what he was doing there with his side. So apologies to Prison Mike for bringing that up. But yeah, how can you not go past King Teddy? 158 metres, 6 tackles, 7 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, 4 line break assists, 3 try assists, and 2 tries on his way to just over a ton, 103 GDS points. Before that, though, I guess there were reasons to be off him because he only scored 31 and 32, which was season lows those previous 2 weeks. So, yeah, I can understand why people would want to go off him. But look, it's hard to go past the face of GDS. And like you say, it's a tougher matchup this week. But the Dogs are still allowing an average of 42 to fullbacks over the past 5 weeks. But that is almost 10 points more than their previous season average. So there's definitely some vulnerability there for the Bulldogs. And like I said, the Roosters are pretty much every match that they're playing now is do or die for that top 8 spot. And I think if they have a big win this week, they might find their way into the top 8. So I think Teddy, once again, it's a big game for him, and I think he'll shoulder most of that load. And for me, that means if I'm going Teddy, I'm looking at Turbo. I've only got 1 spot left, and we've still got about 4 blokes up there that I haven't looked at and we talked about yet. So for me, it's a matchup between whether I go Edwards or Mitchell. Mitchell playing left centre. He obviously returned last week sporting that 22 jersey, lined up at left centre then. As a result, he was actually in everything. Set up at some tries. He saved a couple of tries. As you said, that one on JC was ridiculous. He broke a few tackles. He was offloading. The only thing we didn't see from him, which I couldn't believe, was that we've seen for the rest of the season was his kicking, both in play and off the tee. And I guess that's probably injury-based. He had 0 kicking meters, which is the first time he has all season. And then he didn't kick goals as well with Bailey there kicking them. So hopefully we can see Trell with the tee and get back those sort of going up in 3s. So I think the Rabbitohs will have a big game up against the Eels and plenty of points could be on offer there. So it'll be a shame if he misses out on 9, 12, 15 points if he's not kicking off the tee. And then hopefully he also has some in-play kicks now that he's had a week, back in the side and he's had a good opportunity to have a run. The other thing I think South fans will be hoping is that he has a few try assists down that left side to AJ, and hopefully AJ is 1 or 2 tries closer to that Ken Irvine record of 212 tries. I think he needs, 4 more to break the record. So maybe we could see a 4 more this round would be unreal.
And there's a pretty important player for them on the extended bench as well. I think maybe in the number 22 again this week, and that's Cody Walker. If he does make his way into that side and lines up at left side half, I think they'll be directing every single ball down the left-hand side to AJ so that he can get that record. And that means, Latrell is going to be there or thereabouts for a lot of those plays. So, yeah, look, plenty of big names. Looks like Ben Austin's comment from before got cut off and he finished it with, which is a huge juxtaposition with his choices from last week of Teddy and Edwards. Gee, some big words there. He must be a teacher of literacy, Ben Austin there. Look, like I said, 6 or 7 genuine options. Benny said it could make or break our teams, and I think he is spot on. It'll probably be that one position that I toss and turn over, that I chop and change, and then just pray once they've got the locked symbol next to them that they're going to do a job for me. But yeah, I'll be stressing until they lock out. But let's just hope they all get a nice solid 65, and then we don't have to worry about who did or didn't play.
And look, just before we go, we obviously are running out of time because we want to jump across to Discord and get our packs ripping for the bingo for football and for AFLW. But if you do want to run a pod this week, looking at someone like Joash Papali'i up against the Rabbits, we talk about each and every week the Rabbits and their inability to restrict fullbacks. We've seen Edwards 120, we've seen Kennedy's 51, and then Walsh's 56 on the weekend. Joash Papali'i, obviously early in his career, and he's got plenty of promise. Maybe just one to keep an eye on, and hopefully you can get a card of his over the next sort of off season, so that he'll become big money next season potentially as well. But potentially, if you want to play that pod, there's the option there for you too. Alrighty, into our squads for this week. Not too many changes, but I think off the show, we were saying that maybe it's the most differences we've seen between the two squads that we've had, which is great to see, particularly in a week where we've got the GDS Cup or the Classic Cup final. You can see the differences there in Nick Meaney up against Garrick, Dewey up against RTS, Katoa against Fermor, Walsh then as well up against Latrell, and then Kai Pearce-Paul and Tino Fasua-Mala'awi up against Jordan Ricky and Jermaine Hopgood. As we always say, there's an asterisk next to every single person on that list because it could change an hour before kickoff or even 24 hours based on what happens with that late mail. Alrighty, one thing I have not been good at this season is Brodown Showdown. I think that takes you well in the lead, and I think there's no way for me to claw it back. But what that does mean is that it is beneficial for our viewers. So as always, we are going to run the wheel. If you commented Stu last week because you thought Brayley, Watson and Brimson were going to get up over me, you were correct. And as a result, you are now on the wheel there. So we've got Jay Boney, Sif, Skip, Rainsy, Cozzy, Mel, Tom H, Harrison, and Ganners. So let's spin that wheel to see who's going to be the recipient of some cards. Here we go. There it is. It is Harrison Buckley. He commented over on our YouTube channel. Remember, our YouTube is at Fantasy Bros AU. Make sure that you give us a subscribe. We are very close to 100 subscribers, which would be unreal. And let me get the packs up here. I've just got to refresh.
Congrats, Harrison. Well done, mate. Thanks for the support as always.
Must be a lot of things happening in GameDay squad on the site because it is slow. Alrighty, you should see a rare pack in front of you. Yes?
Yeah, we can see it.
Beauty. All right, here we go. Good luck, Harrison.
Let's get that pack open.
Oh, it's a big one.
Oh.
All right, are we just going to give all three away?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Harrison, congrats, mate.
All right, let's start off with the gold. We've got a Josh Kerr. Not a good start, but that's okay. Let's go into here, and we've got the silver. Oh, sorry, platinum Maddie Nicholson. It's a nice card.
Oh,
here we go. And then we have the diamond. Here it is.
Nathan Cleary.
Oh, Mitchy Barnett. Oh, nice diamond there for next season. Obviously, he's out with that injury. For the rest of this season, but that is a wonderful card for next season. Congrats, Harrison. Make sure you hit us up over on Discord or on our Instagram at Fantasy Bros AU. Just like that, you can win prizes just like Harrison, a diamond Mitch Barnett Unreal. All you need to do is comment on our Brodown Showdown. This week, we've spun the wheel and we've got half, edge, and fullback. So 3 pretty tough positions. If you think I'm going to win with my Nathan Cleary, Bo Fermor, and Tom Trbojevic, now they are 3 unreal picks. Make sure you type my name in the comments. If you think Stu's going to get up with JC, Preston, and Walsh, make sure you type Stu in the comments. And it is that simple. If you get it right, you get on the wheel and you could win yourself some unreal cards. Make sure you comment either now in the live, in the YouTube once it has completed, we're finished for the night, or over on Spotify tomorrow morning. That is Thursday morning. It will be up on Spotify, ready to go. Make sure you let us know who's going to take it out this week in the Brodown Showdown. Alrighty, that's it, mate. How are you feeling about round 24?
Yeah, can't wait, mate. Hopefully last opportunity to get some packs for English football. So hopefully find myself on the podium, can double up some prize money, get some packs and settle in for the football season as the NRL season comes to an end. Really excited for round 24 to see who will take home the coveted Classic Cup winners trophy. My money's on Jacks. I think You're on Guardy, aren't
you? You go with Jax, I'll go with Guardy, and we'll ride them all the way to Sunday evening, Monday morning. Remember, you can check out scores Monday morning from about 8 o'clock. I can't wait to see it. We've got some names coming through as well for Brodown Showdown. Jay Boney, each and every week, goes for Stu. Good on you, mate. Michael Cozzy hitting me up. That's unreal work. Thanks, Michael Cozzy, for your support, and a few others there as well. So we'll make sure we get you on the wheels. Alrighty, thank you very much. Look, round 25. It is almost the end of the season. Don't forget, there is going to be a final series as well. So make sure you get your packs ready, and you are looking forward to that. Round 25 live show will come to you next Wednesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. As always, you can check us out on @FantasyBros AU from YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and over on Spotify and Apple Podcast as well. We love your support. Thank you very much. Keep an eye on socials tomorrow. We have a cheeky little teaser that we are going to post just before the first the first game of the round in league. So keep an eye out on all of those socials. Thanks for your support. Thanks for commenting. Look forward to catching up with a few of you over in the Bingo Discord. Now, if you aren't on Discord, make sure you look up GameDay Squad Discord, jump across to it so you can get involved in the bingo game over there. Thank you very much, Stu. Good luck for the week. Thanks to Jax again for joining us. Everyone, good luck. Have a great week.